Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to Chabad and Friends, episode number 11 on COLlive.com. Today, I'll talk a little bit about the Rosh Hashiva, the past Rosh Hashiva of the yeshiva, the Mir Yeshiva in Brooklyn on Ocean Parkway, Reb Shmuel Berenbaum, and his connection to Chabad, to some Lubavitcher Talmidim who became Chabad, and in future episodes we'll talk more about it. But today I want to talk about an incident that happened in 1976 with Mivtza Mezuzah. In Shvat of Tovshin Lamed Daled of 1974, the Rebbe called for the Mivtza Mezuzah, the Mezuzah campaign, that we should check our mezuzahs to make sure that they're kosher mezuzahs, and everyone should have mezuzahs. And this is something that Lubavitcher Chassidim in particular went around and did a tremendous amount in this vein. Of course, there were those that questioned it, opposed it, and the Rebbe, during the 2 years from 74 to 76, answered many of the questions, addressed them. He would say, they're looking for trouble, they're looking to complain, but nevertheless, I'll answer them, I'll give them this source and this minhag and and this story to understand why it's so important. Reb Shmuel Berenbaum was a Talmid in Mir in Lita, and then later in Shanghai. He was among the Talmidim, the students who were saved and were in Shanghai. That was in the Mir Yeshiva. And we all know also that there was a Lubavitcher Yeshiva, the Talmidim, the students from Atfotsk, also made their way to Shanghai. But he was in the Mir Yeshiva. He came into America and he became the Rosh Hashiva in the Mir Yeshiva. Reb Shmuel Berenbaum, I was told by some of his Talmidim, was a masmid nifla, a tremendous individual who not just knew how to learn, but he was diligent in learning. He didn't stop learning. In fact, there's an interesting clip on YouTube seeing him and another Talmud Chacham at a wedding, and they're tearing each other apart in learning. It's not just very cute, it's an insight into the Litvische learning mind, and it's very telling, and those that want to understand it should really take a look at that clip, because it seems like they're fighting and going at each other at a wedding, sitting at a chasen, at a table, it's like ridiculous, but it's not. It's a raisa meraschale, which is the idea, the Torah within them is burning in them, is raging in them, and they're we say in Yiddish kochen sich and lernen, but with a rage. So when you look at it from on the outside, it looks very strange and funny, but if you know the mindset of the Litvische mindset of learning, it makes sense, and you'll get an idea of this type of person. But that wasn't his specialty. His specialty, I'm told, is his hasmoda in learning, his non-stop learning around the clock. This Reb Shmuel had a son, Chaim. Chaim was learning in 1976 in the Brisker Yeshiva in Yerushalayim. And Bein Azmanim, he and a friend of his, Mordechai Schechter, who's today the Mashgiach Ruchni in the Yeshiva Chaim Berlin here in Brooklyn. This is the Rosh Hashiva Reb Aaron Schechter's son. One of his sons, his name is Reb Mordechai, who I met. They went for Bein Azmanim to Netanya, and they went and stayed at a hotel called Gali Tzanz. It's like the waves of Tzanz, which means it's at the water, so there's waves. So it's a resort hotel, and it's run by Kloisenberg Hasidim, so it's it's very kosher and very frum and tznius and all that. And they went out one night for a walk or something, and when they came back, everything was closed. And there was a guard, a Jewish guard. He might have even been a frum guard. At that time, the Fadi'in, the Palestinian terrorists, would come with these little bungee ships, little like rafts of ships that were kind of made of rubber, and they weren't noticeable, and you were able to come right to the edge of the water without people noticing you, and they would able to come in and they would do terrible things. So this was a very tenuous time when we had this going on, and there were already previous incidents. And that's why these hotels at the water had special guards and locked, and the place was all locked because they were afraid of these terrorists. Anyway, this guard, for some reason, he didn't recognize the two Bacharim, Chaim and Mordechai, and someone's knocking. It's late at night. They came back late. Nothing. He didn't open up. And then I'm told that Chaim went around the side. So that made the guard more suspicious, and he thought he's a terrorist, and he actually shot him and he killed him. It was a terrible tragedy. It was a real mistake, but that's what happened. This happened on Tes Vav of, Tu B'Av, Tafshin Lamed Vav, 1976. The Rebbe at the Farbrengen of Chofav, in the third or fourth sikha, I believe the third sikha or the fourth sikha, anyway, the Rebbe was speaking about the importance of Mivtza, Mezuzah, and he said there are those that still don't understand, or still have complaints, or still oppose it. And the Rebbe said, Hashem is sending us various signs that it's so necessary to do this, and especially in Eretz Yisrael for the protection of the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. And after mentioning two incidents, the Rebbe said, I wasn't going to speak about the following, but it just happened, and if something positive can come from it, it's important to mention it. And he said there was a student from a yeshiva that's surely a kanoyas dike yeshiva, a zealot type yeshiva. And of course he was referring to the brisk yeshiva, because the brisker are kanoyim. They're big zealots in what they believe. And the Rebbe said that this Bocher Nebuch was killed accidentally, but that's what happened. And the Rebbe said it's important to use out this incident in a positive way, because after he was killed, they checked his room, and in his yeshiva, in his room, and they saw that there was a posel Mezuzah on the door. So the Rebbe said the lesson is that we should now increase our checking of mezuzahs. They should be kosher, and doors that don't have mezuzahs, we should put mezuzahs on. And the Rebbe said his father is a Rosh Shiva, and as Ozich Nishemen, he shouldn't be embarrassed, and he should take this that happened and use it in a positive way to bring more light into the world. And the Rebbe did not imply at all, chas v'sholom, God forbid, that his father is at fault and the blame game. That wasn't part of it. But he did use the words ezol zich nishemen. During Shiva, someone told me that he actually mentioned this to another son of Reb Shmuel Berenbaum. The Rosh Shiva was, Chaim's father was Reb Shmuel Berenbaum, who was the Rosh Shiva of Mir Yeshiva. So he lost his son. That was his son. So during Shiva, a Lubavitcher mentioned to another son who he was friendly with what the Rebbe said. And it also was mentioned to a Rabbi Feldman. Rabbi Feldman was, I believe, a mashgiach in the yeshiva. He was a brother-in-law with Rabbi Lieberman, the partner of Rabbi Avram Aaron Rubashkin. And it was brought to his attention, and he was very upset with these words. He took it in a way that wasn't positive. I don't know how, but the Rebbe summoned Rabbi Shmuel Dovid Raichik because I assume because he knew Reb Shmuel Berenbaum from Shanghai, although he wasn't Lubavitch Yeshiva and he wasn't the Mir Yeshiva, but the Bochurim, knew each other. And the Rebbe asked him to go be Menachem Ovel, Reb Shmuel Berenbaum, and to tell him that he didn't mean at all to hurt his feelings, and that if he was insulted because of the words that he used, as Ozech Neshemin, he should know he didn't have that in mind, and he just meant to emphasize the importance of using out the negative, the darkness, the terrible tragedy in a positive way. How Reb Shmuel took it, I was told he heard, he said thank you, he didn't respond. What we see from this one story, and there are more stories with Reb Shmuel and Lubavitch, is that the Rebbe thought about him and was concerned about what happened. At the same time, being proactive and doing something is the way to correct a negative situation. So that's why the Rebbe said, increase the observance of checking mezuzahs wherever possible. And in Schus Take, in memory of this fine Bocher, Chaim, the son of Reb Shmuel Berenbaum, he should have a Lichtig in Gan Eden and come back with the coming of Mashiach.